So I did, but this time something took over my body and I started writing these symbols in a pentagram. Started hearing this thing with me talking to me. It's like a low, very low, growly voice, which was the demonic that I've made the pact with. And they start putting on these cloaks, the fellas, until he comes to me and he says, step forward. He cuts me behind my ear. He takes the blood drip that's on the end of it and he pops it directly in the middle of the hexagram. It's not real, it's not real. It was real. I know what art is, and that was it.
Guys, this is absolutely mind-blowing and crazy and disgusting. What the world has gone to is completely depraved. This witch/actress/model exposes the terrible dark realm of the industry of very, very successful people in the satanic cult that somehow she got into because she wanted riches and fame. But guys, let me tell you, it's not worth it. So let's dive right deep into this. This is what it says. I saw a dead body being eaten at a party. What in the world is going on here? What kind of satanic cult wacko thing is happening? And I believe this is all happening in France. What is the god that they put up at the Olympics? Dionysus. They eat human flesh. They put the god of Dionysus on the platter to be eaten. How ironic. So let's get into this. This lady has a pretty thick accent, so it's difficult for you to understand sometimes. So I will do my best to also help you understand what is going on here.
It's like, I can't do this. And I had pressure off my mum. I had pressure, obviously, just from being a single parent. He was nowhere to be seen. He ended up going away for one reason or another. And I was at rock bottom and I thought, I'll try some magic. So we did a bit of research and I was looking on the internet at Anton LaVey and Aleister Crowley's sorts of types of magic, and I took excerpts of information and I ended up setting a ritual up. It's basically a pentagram on the floor. I had to myself and put blood on the points and say these words, and they were English. So I does this ritual, goes to bed thinking I'm going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to be a star or something. Because I didn't ask what it is. A lot of people who do this type of stuff, who go into making pacts with demonics or the dark side, will be specific. And I wasn't. I just wanted money. I didn't care how it came. So on the thing that I just wrote, I just want money and love. And that was that. So I goes to bed, I wakes up, everything's normal and nothing changes. And I left it for about a month. And I was like, that hasn't worked. I haven't done it right. So it does more research. And I must have been researching God for about 6 months. And I found bits and bobs, did another ritual a few months later and it didn't work again. And I was like, I'm obviously really, really crap at this and I'm not doing it right. There was no doubt in my mind that it was possible. It was just that I wasn't doing it the right way. So after a while, I did one spare at the moment in the middle of the night in my house for whatever reason. I just wasn't feeling great and I thought, okay, we'll try again. So I did, but this time something took over my body. And I started writing these symbols in a pentagram. Symbols that I couldn't write to you now. I couldn't tell you what they are or draw them. I've never seen them again ever since, apart from in a vision. And yeah, like I say, something takes over my body completely. And I'm dotting the blood everywhere, and then I stand in the pentagram. And these words are coming out my mouth. It's a foreign language, something I've never understood. It was Latin, I know now, looking back. So I'm saying these words, and all of a sudden, there's this, like, we had no doors in the house. They'd all been pulled off over the years and arguments and stuff like that. So we had this curtain over the door on the top floor. We had a 3-story townhouse type of thing. And this big gust of wind hits the curtain and blows in my face, this ice cold, and I felt the presence in the pentagram with me. So I've shut my eyes, panicked, and I couldn't move. I was like frozen for a little minute, and then I jumped into bed, threw the quilt over my head like a baby, like you would when you're scared when you're a kid, and I didn't move, couldn't breathe. And after a few hours, these bells started, but they were that loud. It was that you could feel it in your chest, and I'm thinking, surely everyone can hear that. There was a church in the village, but it's never that loud. It was like it was right next door to me.
Wow.
And the whole night, these bells are going on and on and on. I falls asleep at some point and I wakes up in the morning again. I'm like, I feel normal. Don't feel anything. And a couple of weeks, I was applying for this, that and the other, and I did want to get back into the modelling. It sends my portfolio off to a few agencies. Always got a no, or didn't reply. Because to be fair, I wanted to go into fashion, and I'm only 5'2". You know, I haven't got perfect skin. I'm probably not the body for it. But one day this email comes back and he's invited me for a casting. And I was like, oh my God, I've made it, type of thing. And I went and they loved me. And I was like, wow, this is quite surreal.
So she was super broke, had a child, and she's like, let's just start doing magic rituals, satanic rituals. I'm going to ask it to help me to make money. This is wild. And this is just the beginning. Nothing was working every time when she would do these hexes and these certain rituals until the last time where something took over her body and made her write things with her own blood. Guys, I'm telling you, selling yourself is not worth it. But that checks out with the other story about that rapper saying that these Illuminati figures, whoever they were, said they do demonic rituals, satanic rituals to get money. And now she's finally getting opportunities. This is crazy. Let's see what happens next, because what happens is wild here.
So they put me on the books, and I think it was about 3 weeks after that casting that I went to, I started hearing this thing with me talking to me.
No
it's like a low,
way.
very low, growly voice, which was the demonic that I'd made the pact with. So I picked a very specific demonic to do it with called Belphegor. It's a demon of sloth and gluttony and stuff like that.
Wow.
And it's telling me its name and it's speaking to me, and I'm thinking I'm schizophrenic.
That's
I'm
wild.
hearing voices. This is peculiar. But at the same time, I was like, maybe it's just because of what I've done. Maybe this is how it goes, type of thing. So I'm getting slow bits of work. I've got this thing in my ear. Now at this point as well, I'd always been able to hear other spirits, my own spirit guides, other people's passed on loved ones, my own passed on family, and it got shut off. And I couldn't hear nothing at all. And that was quite freaky. So I'd gone from hearing all these lovely things and lovely messages like you're safe and blah, 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 to this thing screaming at me. And I think at some point as well, I would be able to tap into the demonic realm and you'd hear these screams in your head 24/7 to the point where it's hard to concentrate on what you're doing.
Wow.
So yeah, carries on with that agency for a few months, and after a while I was thinking like it's quite slow. I was getting well paid work and it was good, but I was like, it's quite slow. And I ended up being introduced to an agent, like a freelance agent, and he was all over me at a party. He knew someone that I knew, and I hated them. I didn't like him. Big, egotistical, and big I am. You know what I mean? Thought he was great. So I was dead like opposed to him, and he gave me a business card to come out the toilet. And he was like, I can help you. In fact, I think I can get you a lot of well-paid work. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. Takes the business card, and I thought nothing of it. And the work started drying up from this agency, and I was like, I'm getting a bit desperate. I've got bills to pay. So I sent him a message, and he was like, yeah, if you let me come and take some photos of you, I've got a private buyer who'll buy them off you. And I was like, okay, what's your commission? And he went, not taking none. And I was like, okay. So it goes, does the shoots. He made me a fair bit of money off the photos, and it was not a miss, it was modern tights. And I didn't speak to him very often. He'd message me and say, do you want this job? And I'd be like, no, I don't fancy that, or can't do that, whatever. And after a minute, he said, look, I've got a really, really well-paid job. It's international. Do you want to get it? I'm going to send your portfolio off if you want you. We're going on Friday. And I was like, okay, fab. Now I'm petrified flying. I have to take the house plan to fly. Anyway, he comes back and he's like, yeah, right, they want you. We're going.
Wow.
So he goes, and I was stressing having the tablets in my bag. I didn't want to take them till we'd gone through security, because I didn't want to feel monged going through the airport. And he was like, I'll carry them. And I was like, I don't want to get them took off me. Like, I don't want to think anything, because they weren't on prescription or anything like that. So he puts them in his bag and we goes through, and for whatever reason, we were having a drink somewhere. And I goes, gives them tablets. So he passes me them, I take one. And I blacked out. Don't usually black out off diazepam. And when I wakes up, we were in a cab, we'd flown, got out at the airport, and we're in a cab on the way to this hotel. And we goes in, and it was night time by the time we arrived. And we've got separate rooms. I'm in my room and I'm sort of coming to a little bit, waking up a little bit. And there's a knock on the door, and he was like, we need to take some content. So he comes in with his camera, and he was like, put this on. And showed me like this black lacy lingerie bodysuit thing with some stockings and suspenders. And he's taking photos of me but he's filming it as well. And he's finished doing his content basically. And I've leant over the desk to get me ciggies. And he's grabbed me from behind on video. And I've jumped out my skin and gone, oh, what are you doing? Like, you've insulted me. And he was like, oh, do you blame me? You're gorgeous, you know. How do you expect me to keep your hands off? I know this is part of the industry. And to be fair, I've seen a lot of people get groped. I've seen a lot of people being touched in ways.
That's terrible. And this is not even, it's terrible, but there's some crazier stuff happening. This is what it seems like. In order to get into these industries, you have to sell your soul, sell your body, sell things where you should never go down. You have to compromise your integrity, compromise your purity. And this is what happens when you make a pact with the devil.
That were inappropriate and stuff like that. And it is a bit of a culture within that industry, within a lot of industries. The media industry is the same. I sort of just put it to the back of my mind and was like, oh, he's just a sleazebag, he's just horrible. And the day after it was a 2-day shoot. And that night he said, we're going to an after party. And I was like, oh, all right, fine, great. I was knackered. And I remember I didn't want to go. We were flying out the next morning. And we're in this party. And after a minute, he comes over to me. I'm trying to leave him because he's getting on my nerves. They're close to me all the time. And I'm talking to these local girls, random girls. And he's like, come over, I've got someone I want you to meet. So he takes me like right to the back of this club through like a corridor that would lead to the toilet and then this back room with a black door. And we goes through and there's 3 fellas sat there between the ages of 60 and probably 80.
Oh, wow.
All dressed in suits, briefcases. And one of them stands up, the other 2 stay sat down, and he comes over and he was like, I've been waiting to meet you. And he shakes my hand and he's looking me up and down like I'm a piece of meat.
Yikes.
I was like, come over. So he sits down and we're having a drink and they're all talking and I'm just sort of, don't know what to say. And I was quite aware as well, they were all very posh. And I'm quite common and brassy, so I was like, I don't know what to say. I don't know about wine. I don't know about these things that these people are talking about, stocks. And out of nowhere, one of the other fellas just looks at me and went, what's your party trick? And I went, what? He went, what's your party trick? And I just went, oh, magic. And just started laughing. He went, oh, so you're one of us then? And I was like, oh, do you do magic? And he was like, yeah. And I'm thinking he thinks I've just meant drugs. And I'm thinking he's probably thinking drugs. And it wasn't until a little bit later on that was the first time they'd let on that they sort of knew what I'd done.
Oh, so this person knew that she did magic. She did this ritual. They're like, oh, wow. That's wild stuff. What is going on? The enemy is a roaring lion waiting to steal, kill, and destroy. That is for sure.
Flies home. And I got invited to basically another, what was called a party, about 2 months later. And it was basically, there was girls there with loads of fellas, all kinds of people, but them 3 men were there. And I weren't introduced to them. I didn't see them initially as we went in. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on. It was a proper full-on. Literally, there's people getting shagged everywhere. And I'm looking at the agents and I'm like, what is this? What have you brought me to? You know, I get it that some girls might be into that in this industry, but I'm not in. Like, what is this? And I wasn't doing any like stuff modelling. I was doing really tasteful, nice stuff. And he was like, oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about this. Again, you've got to come to these places. You've got to get to know these people. You've got to rub shoulders with the right people to get get your work, basically. And I was like, this seems mad. Anyway, the night goes on. Everyone's off the faces, pissed. And this big fella walks in, big beard, with no t-shirt on, with a pair of shorts on. And this girl's linked in his arm. She barely walks. He's holding her up. And he brings it into like a table like this that's in the middle of like a hall. And there's other bits of tables around it, but this one had just been left empty. No one had touched it. There was no drinks on it, no nothing. And as I've walked in, he's picked her up and threw her on the table. So she's sat on the table like this. She's got all to the backside of it and her feet are hanging over the other side. It's like a beveled glass table, like a square, and it spins. And he starts spinning her until she's from holding on to it,
Wow.
getting faster and faster. And as he's spinning the table, everyone starts gathering round in a circle, so I naturally do, I just follow the agents. And he's saying this chant. Again, it's a Latin chant. And I'm thinking, oh, this is mad. Again, there's all still people doing all kinds of weird stuff behind me that aren't part of this circle. And I'd like to go in everywhere. I mean everywhere. Her hands were cut, her arms were cut, feet, upper legs, her ankles. And after a minute, he just stops it dead sudden, picks her up, throws her over his shoulder and walks out with her. And the agent goes, come on, madam. And I'm like, in shock, thinking this is mad. Maybe this is just what rich people do with their money. And we're in a cab on the way back. And I was like, what the fuck was that? What have you got me into? And he went, are you in our club or what? And I was like, what fucking club are you on about? This is mad. Like, what were they doing? What's he doing with it? But what was interesting is as we've come out to get into the cab, you can hear him. But he was saying something, and you could hear him, like, going at it, you know what I mean? But every time you could hear a thrust, he was saying something as he was doing it.
Guys, this is so messed up and evil. Like, the fact that people think that this is something worthwhile chasing after. The world constantly says, this is what you need. In reality, it's just so depraved and disgusting, and you're only filled with complete depression and anxiety and filled with no hope at all. All for some mere moments of pleasure that are fleeting. All to just get things on this earth where moth, rust, and decay happen. You don't even get to keep it forever.
Making, like, he must have seen how shocked I was, the agents, and he was making a joke of it, going, they're together, they're in a relationship, stop sweating, like, you know, people have got weird fantasies that they like to fulfill. And I was like, yeah, but in front of everyone, making it, like, what's all that about? And he's laughing, and like laughing at me, where I felt like very small at that point, and I'm thinking, oh, I've got myself into some weird.
Yeah.
You see, I just didn't think for 1 minute it was what it was. I just thought these are all just weird people with too much money. So you've got to do this stuff. And the day after, he sent me another message. It was a text message saying, are you in our club or what? And I just wrote back, yeah. This thing used to take over a little bit. And every ounce of my body, every cell in my body went, no.
Wow.
It's like I knew what I was getting myself into, but it didn't. And I just felt the urge to go, yeah, I'm all for it.
That's crazy. So she felt like she didn't want to do it, but the thing that's controlling her now after she did that demonic pledge made her say, yeah, be careful who you give your body over to.
Very, very familiar faces that were in these places. The next one I went to was down south in Berkshire, and it was my initiation, basically.
Her initiation.
And I walked in, and as I'd basically been booked by this couple that owned this house. They had a business and they wanted me to model some, like, lingerie, stocking type of thing. My face wouldn't be in it, just my lower body. I was like, yeah, great. So they invited me down. And as I walked in, I remember having this feeling of dread. There was a fucking crow just stood next to my car as I got out the car, and it was squawking at me, and I remember thinking, that's an omen. And I walks in, and they were all over me, making a big fuss of me, like, oh, here you are, you're all new to all this, aren't you? And I was like, yeah, I'm new to all this. And she just looked at me in the most weirdest way, like she just stopped suddenly speaking and stared at me and went, don't worry, we're going to take it easy on your mum. And I was like,
wow.
Okay. So we had dinner, and at one point, the fella who owns this house, the fella of the couple, stood up at the end of the table and he did a toast. And at the end of the toast, he put his champagne flute down. I went like that. Looked around on the table and everyone was doing it, and I'm going, what? And I'm in the shades. And stops, picks up, cheers everyone, chin chin, and just carries on. And at one point they go, right, should we go to the drawing room? I think it was the drawing room. Some back room, big double doors, big wooden double doors, massive house. And it's like a games room, there's books in there, there's, board games, drinks and stuff like that. So everyone sits down, and it's like they were red velvet sofas that lined it, and it was like an oblong shape. So everyone sits down on these sofas, and we get to drink, and they were like, right, let's play some games. And I'm thinking, I play checkers, chess, you know what I mean? Maybe this is part and parcel of it, because I've been immersed in a world at this point where I'm not used to it. It's nothing that I've ever been used to. It's all very much luxury, high society type of stuff. And he gets this gold mat off the shelf, and they're spinning this mat, and whoever it lands on, this woman's asking like a mad question to them. And it ends up landing on me. And I panicked. I don't know why, but I just panicked. And she looked me right in the eye and she went, once upon a time, you did something really, really naughty, didn't you? What was it, Molly? And I was like, I made a wish and it come true. And she just burst out laughing and went, yeah, spun the start again. And I'm thinking, this and where's this going?
Wow.
And after a while, a couple of people left, and there was me, this couple that owned the house, and two other people that had met out the industry that knew the agent. The agent wasn't there at that one. And as I've walked into another room, we've come out the games room, we've been taken into another room, there's a checkerboard marble floor. And in the floor is a big, massive, what is actually, it's not a pentagram, it's called a universal hexagram.
Freemasons.
You've heard of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's something that Crowley uses.
Yeah, Freemasons.
Yeah. And there's one of them, and they start putting on these cloaks, the fellas, the women don't put one on. And they all stand in a circle, and he's lighting these candles. They were on like 3 candelabras in 3 points around this hexagram. And he goes round and he's saying words and he's touching people on the head as he goes round, does it to me. And then everyone takes hands, and I'm stood next to the fella of the couple who's leading this ritual. And this girl next to me takes my hand, so I've got all of her on, but he doesn't take it. And he walks into the middle, takes a knife out of his pocket, and it was, I can still remember it like it was yesterday, it had a deer horn as its handle. And he takes the knife out and he nicks her on, he starts on that side on the left of me, touches her finger with a little bit and goes through each person until he comes to me and he says, step forward. So he steps forward into the pentagram and he's looking at me. And I can't quite see his face because he's put a veil over it. And I'm thinking, but I can see these eyes, and his eyes have gone black. He had blue eyes initially, and his eyes were black as night. And I'm thinking, is it the light? Is it this? Is it that? And then he turns his back to me and he blows out a couple of the candles. And as he does, you can see a very, very blatant shape of Baphomet's head appear over the hexagram from what he'd done with the light. He turns around to me. He cuts me behind my ear. He takes the blood drip that's on the end of the knife and he pops it directly in the middle of the hexagram, where basically the middle of Baphomet's head shadow is. And then he...
Yeah, is she saying that it created a shadow, like a god, I don't know what that is, a Baphomet? Is that like some deity? A shadow figure started to appear where the blood was, where they put her blood. That's so creepy.
Walks back to the edge of the circle. We all hold hands again. Everyone's straight. And I'm like this. And everyone's just stood there like saying these words. And I'm kind of like, and I panicked. I was shaking. Like, I'm thinking, what is this? This is mad. Am I getting sacrificed? Is this where it's going? And then out of nowhere, hoods off, like nothing had happened, throws them back on the shelf. The women walk out, we're retiring for bed. And they just left me in this room, and I go around and I'm blowing the candles out like that's a fire hazard and going through motions because I was in shock. And I goes to bed. Does the shoot for their brand a couple of weeks later, and I don't see them again. Never again, this couple. The other people that were involved in that ritual, seen them multiple times, but this couple, that was the only time I ever seen them.
Wow.
I mean, I could describe them for you and everyone would know exactly who they are. And I can't do that, you know what I mean? Not quite top. So the initial fella that I'd met in the first, when I'd gone to that after party, when we were abroad, off that first very high paid job, he ended up as the leader, the fella with the crocodile skin shoes. He always had a briefcase to match. He always wore the same shoes. Very, very old fella, late 60s, early 70s.
Red shoes.
They weren't red, but you know that type of mahogany brown that's got a red tinge to it. that type, like patent leather shoes.
Were you not excited though, especially if you're
No.
going down the way route of the satanic?
This is so crazy. It all reminds me of just like what that other guy was talking about who's doing a photo shoot in the Hollywood music industry, trying to make it. They're like, we do satanic rituals. And then there's a guy who's in charge of it all. And everyone knows who it is. He said Leonardo DiCaprio. That's wild. This is the story of her seeing a dead body.
This went on for, I was in this club for about a year. 2 years from the start of the process.
Man.
To sort of getting out, really. And at one of the last rituals that I went to is where I lost all bearings of reality and myself. And it was in France, and I'd done a shoot. Ended up going to an after party. It was a huge event. They had like acrobatics on, fire breathers. It was boss. And later on in the night, bear in mind, I'm drinking, but I'm not drunk, type of thing. Don't take any drugs, nothing like that. Later on in the night, they're bringing out these platters, and I comes back into like the main, wasn't a hall, but like the main room where everyone was, and there's a body on a table just like this. In fact, this is round about the same size that it was. Like an overweight fella, cut open with, it's all been decorated with grapes and leaves and flowers, but like what I think was hanging out, his tongue had been out, and it was on someone's plate. Who was just eating it. His eyes had been, but like they were still on the stalky thing, so they were just hanging. And I remember looking at it and panicking. I just had a panic attack, and I started screaming. And I was like, what the fuck is that? And some fella comes behind me that I'd seen him, but had never spoke to him at these places. And he goes, "You're making a scene. Calm yourself down. It's just art, Molly." And I was like, this isn't art. And like the scouse bit came out of me, and I'm like, you know what I mean? I lost this, and I'm running down this hall. I'm looking for the toilets, and this fella comes behind me again, and he grabs me and he throws me in this room. This room's pitch black, absolutely pitch black. And he gives me a drink, and it's this pink fizzy drink. And I'm like, no, I don't want to drink. And he's going, you're gonna have to calm down. You need to calm down. You're ruining the night for everyone. Do you not understand? You're making a scene and you're frightening other people. It's just art. It's not real. It's not real. It was real. I know what art is. And that was a dead.
That is crazy. They had a dead body. Guys, we live in a very fallen world. And if you think that there's no evil going on, there's nothing crazy going on, guys, you are very well being misled. John 10:10 says, "The thief's purpose is to steal, kill, and destroy, but my purpose is to give them rich and satisfying life." And then, "For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against the rulers and authorities in the unseen world, against mighty powers in the dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places." So guys, do not give in to anything, and keep on trusting in Jesus and seeking him more and more, God. And guys, and be praying for your friends. Be praying for the people who may be thinking are not living for God. They're all susceptible to these crazy evil things. I encourage you all to trust in Jesus each and every step of the way. Trust in him. It is totally worth it. Anyway, guys, love to know what you think in the comments down below. And if you've never decided to follow Jesus and you want to do that today, I encourage you to do that. Surrender your life to Jesus. Make him your Lord and Savior. In the description below, you can click a link to help you to decide to follow Jesus for the first time. I encourage you to do that today. Now, just remember, guys, Jesus loves you.